go with that. Okay. So as you guys can see in the final project document, you guys have a report next week. For us this semester, that is May 5th, graphics class. So next week is our last week of classes, right? So that means we need to be wrapping things up, get things documented and finalized on Monday, and then that way we can focus on being prepared for the presentation then on the last day of class, that being Wednesday. And so a rough draft of your presentation will be due on Wednesday, May 7th. But yeah, a week from today, a report will be due. That'll be a final version of the report. It can be in at midnight. Right? You have all day on Monday to work on it. So it can be in at midnight at no penalty. After that, I'd really love it if I don't have to come up with a late penalty system. So if you guys could get it to me on time, that would be greatly appreciated. I will devise a late penalty if I need to. I'd rather not. So that's, of course, is all available to you in your final project document, which is available to you on Canvas. I noticed that in Canvas, it doesn't want to load a preview of that document. You do have to, for some reason, download it and open it. So, but that is there. It is accessible. So we're going to talk about, I'm going to share screen here. Screen, let's see, which one is up? Screen 2 looks like. Perfect. Okay. So, my picture over here. There we go. So again, this is the final project document. I am going to refer to, we're going to talk about the report today. Okay? So we're going to refer to, as a group, you're going to compile a simple report. Here's the things that you want to be in your report. Here are the due dates we mentioned just earlier. And then I'll also refer to how the report's going to get graded. And so we'll talk about that. Let's talk about reports today. So basics of putting together, writing a report, things we need to know and think about, talk about. Again, be sure you've looked at the final project document. You have an idea how the reports are going to get graded. So you know what I'm looking for roughly. I've given you a pretty rough idea, but it's pretty reasonable. Essentially, a D and an F report are the ones that you don't present a realistic solution. I don't, just judging by what I'm seeing, I don't anticipate that's going to be a concern. Also, a D or an F report could be a C report that just doesn't get turned in on time, and I have to figure out a late penalty report, right? So these are the things you want to avoid. So again, and we'll refer back to that as we get a little further along. Let's talk about what do we need to consider and how the report should look. The report is a communication, right? Your project report is a communication. You are documenting what you did and why, in the simplest terms. Anytime you're putting together a communication, first question needs to be, who is my audience? Who am I writing for? What is the purpose of this writing, and what do I need to know about the people that are actually reading? You can consider me to be your primary audience for the report. On occasion, Mr. Lynch or our client for the graphics projects, or Professor Gilbert on occasion may have some interest and might want to look. So it's a kind of secondary audience. But your primary audience for the report you can consider to be me. For your presentations, then again, I will invite guests. Normal Mr. Lynch should be available. Oftentimes, Professor Gilbert or Professor Safadino will try to attend if they're available at those times. Some of our math faculty will also attend on occasion. So physics, math, occasionally we'll have some of our biology and chemistry faculty also attend. They're all within the STEM division. They're all invited. So all that to say, you can assume your audience for both the report and your presentation are of a STEM background. You can assume that we all have an advanced degree in STEM of some kind, right? So it might be a different kind of science. It might be engineering, but what that means is, in general, we're all going to be capable of managing and digesting fairly technical knowledge. With that said, Also keep in mind your audience. Most of your audience are going to be educators, okay? And in general, you're going to impress us if you can take technical information and put it in a non-technical form, because that's kind of what we like to do, right? Most of us. So if you can do some of that, you can. All that to say, because of our background, your audience, if you need to be technical about something, you can. That's okay. And just again, you're not going to impress us with your ability to talk technical, either in the presentation or the report. You might impress us with your ability to simplify it down to non-technical if possible. Okay. Also, just word to the wise, if we have some math faculty attend or just plan for some math faculty to be able to attend, you really want to impress them, show them where you used math somewhere in your project. They love that. They eat that right up. So just, you know, if you just letting you know. So to that point, consider your audience. This I found in a nice intro to engineering textbook. I always chuckle when I read this one. There's this hypothetical. They say Sam the plumber writes to the National Institutes of Standard and Technology. I'm not sure why Sam the plumber decided to write them, but let's just say he does. He says, "Hey, can I use hydrochloric acid in the drain pipes?" I mean, it's good at dissolving organics, right? It'll eat some grease. It'll clean things. Yes. If we write back to Sam the plumber something like this, these are words. I think that's English, right? Consider your audience. And that's nothing against Sam the plumber. I don't know about you guys. I do know some plumbers. Some of them actually are very well educated and probably would be just fine with this. Most of them probably are going to read this and not be entirely sure what this says. And most of us probably are going to read this and not be 100% sure exactly what this says. Again, to the point, know your audience. If you need to be technical, because of the nature of your audience in this case, you can be technical if you need to. If you don't need to be technical, don't be technical. Yeah, just word to the wise with your audience. You're not going to impress us with your ability to talk technical to us. If anything, you'll impress us with your ability to talk in a very technical information in a straightforward manner, but that's not required. You be as technical as you need to be to get your point across. Okay. Questions so far? Supposed to be good. All right. That's first thing. What is your audience? Know your audience. Second thing, there's this list here. So I'm gonna write this here. Make you a cool title page. Well, it doesn't even have to be cool. Just make a title page. If you want to make a cool title page, make a cool title page. Right? Oh, I put that off the screen, didn't I? Right above the screen. Here. We're just going to put it over here. Okay, so we know when the report's due. Make your title page. Make a good title page. It doesn't have to be super fantastic. It just has to get your point across. But if you want to make a really cool professional looking title page, by all means do. It's up to you as a group how much time you want to spend. Just make you a title page. And we're going to talk about these headings. Executive summary. Introduction. Background. Also known as your research, if you will. Existing prior knowledge. Your alternative designs. Design alternatives, however you want to say it. Evaluation of them. What does your final design look like? References. And appendices. All right, so again, we're going to go through and talk about these. But now here's the thing. You don't have to follow my outline. You don't even have to have an outline. You can just free form words in there if you want. If you look at how I am going to grade these, in fact, we go look now. Let's go look at how I'm going to grade these. Grading of the final project report. It's going to provide an overview of the team's project throughout the design process and be graded as follows. An A report, an A, B, and C report, all thoroughly, well, all of them evaluate the problem and present a realistic solution. The A report, I say, thoroughly evaluates the problem. B and C adequately evaluates the problem, but in all cases, you present a realistic solution. Okay. In the simplest terms, the C report is this is what we did. The first thing that worked, we were done. And obviously it needs to be probably a few more words than that, but in the simplest terms, we made a thing, it worked, we're done. That's a C report. As long as it's a realistic solution, you got the client's happy, you're happy with the C, I'm happy with the C. We'll move on. I'm fine with it. That's not really engineering. Okay? Engineering is the application of existing knowledge to find the best solution to a practical problem. How do we know it's the best solution? That's what I'm looking for with an A and a B report is, did you actually go through and gather existing knowledge? Did you learn about the experiment that you're trying to help design something for, or the theory behind the classroom demonstration that we're putting something together for? You have some understanding of why this is important. That will help you have some understanding of what actually would work and what doesn't work. What are some previous solutions to this? That's your background information. So an A report, complete collection of background information. B and C, a B would be adequate collection of background, and C just really doesn't have much background. Also, same thing with different design possibilities, so different ideas that you evaluated and compared between. Again, the C report lacks that. It just says, here's the first one, it works. Right, that's a C report. A B and a B report at least attempts to say, hey, here's some different ideas we had. We think this wasn't the best. An A report actually, some different ideas. This is the reason this was the best. These are the reasons these others didn't make it forward as the final design. That's the kind of stuff I'm going to be looking for with an A report. Where you as a group are comfortable following is perfectly fine with me. Okay, that's when I'm grading, that's a pretty good idea of how I'm going to grade those. Okay. So all that to say, you don't have to use my outline I'm presenting to you. If you do, you can probably track and notice that it's going to very easily organize all the things I'm looking for when I grade into a format that's going to be pretty easy for me to follow. But I'll find all the information in there if you just want to throw a whole bunch of text together, as long as it does the things I'm asking you to do. I do want to take just a minute or two and talk to you about some headings, building headings into your, I assume you're going to use Word or maybe Google Docs. Whatever you want to use to generate your report is fine with me. But if I show you some basic tools in these kind of softwares that exist and are easy enough to use, that being your built-in heading. So if I talk briefly about using built-in headings to make a nice, quick looking, very well organized report. So got a blank report here, blank document. Zoom in just a bit. And let's say, so notice I'm just in Word here. On the Home tab in Word, there's going to be a block here for styles. And if you drop this down, notice there's all these different kinds of styles. There's heading 1, there is a heading 2. If you dig in there, there's going to be a heading 3. And you can find additional ones. So there's different kinds of styles in there. Yeah, and so notice then you can pop this out and get a whole bunch more. So, and you can find similar functionality in Google Docs, and it's built into most WordPress or other software we build websites. There are these different kinds of headings. So if I grab one of these headings, if I grab a heading here, heading 1, and I type in here executive summary, okay? Now notice what happens when I hit enter on the style tab. Right now, heading 1 is selected. When I hit enter, notice the text goes back to normal. Okay, text goes back to normal. I'm going to turn on show all characters. You don't have to. I just, once you kind of get used to it, you hate doing anything without it. And then, so executive summary is going to be a simple summary of your entire report in a few paragraphs, we'll say. Okay. And then I'm going to type text here to simulate a paragraph. Space, space. I'm going to copy that sentence. I'm going to paste that sentence a few times. All right, so we have kind of a stand-in for an executive summary, a couple of paragraphs. I don't suggest this is how you write your report. You can't. I don't suggest that. It'd be easy for me to grade. All right, so you have a placeholder for an executive summary. Now, if I move down a little ways, and let's do another heading. Again, notice the outline. If I do another heading here, and this one we'll call introduction. Again, when I hit enter, it's going to go down to the next line. This one didn't automatically change to normal, so I'm just going to change it to normal. It's like I've got an extra space there, and that confused it. So I'm going to change it back to normal text. And now this is going to be your problem statement in your own words, and the whole idea. And I still have this simulated sentence loaded in the clipboard, so I'm going to paste it a few times. So normally introductions are pretty short, just roughly what was it that you were trying to do and why. And then next heading, we'll do background. What was the base knowledge gained, acquired, why? Oh, quit that. All right, so maybe we got a couple paragraphs. Okay. All right. And then I don't have to do the whole report, but let's do a little bit more here. Let's do design alternatives. All right. And we talk about, in general, the design alternatives. And then maybe we talk about each of the alternatives just a little bit. So heading 2. So notice what I did. I went in here and I dropped this down. I grabbed a subheading. This is heading 2, which is a lower level heading. So this is alternative A, and maybe you got a cool name, the Batmobile, I don't know, whatever it is. And then you talk about it. Talk about alternative A. Maybe you got a little bit to say about it, okay? And then you got another couple of alternatives. We'll do heading 2, alternative B, and I don't know what this is, the A-Team band. I maybe get that reference. We talk about that one, okay? And you keep going, right? You guys get the idea, okay? Now, if I zoom out, you look at this, right? So you see now very quickly, I've got a very easy to read, very simply organized, structured report. I didn't do anything fancy. I just used built-in tools that you will find in any word processing software. There's some really cool stuff you can do. So if I go to the very beginning here and I hit Control Enter, notice what that does. Control Enter inserts what we call a page break. By the way, page breaks are hidden characters. Why do I have show all characters on all the time? Because I tend to use characters that you can't see otherwise. And it's kind of annoying to work in a document. Maybe I'm somebody else has already made some of it and I'm working with it and I'm like, why the heck is it moving everything to the next page? Well, if you don't show all characters, you don't notice there's a page break there, right? I'm gonna go ahead and put one more in there. So I've generated 2 blank pages at the beginning of the document here. Okay. The first one is we're just gonna make a quick title page. So quick title page. Cool team name. Cool graphic. Team members. Spring 25. Engineering graphics. Whatever you want to put. Right? You guys get the idea. Okay. And then center this all up, lay it out, do the things. If you need help with formatting, please talk to me. I just find in general, I'm happy to let you guys kind of learn how to use Word. But if you're like, hey, Steve, how do I get this all centered? How do I get it centered in the middle of the page? Come talk. That's easy enough to do. So anyway, Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the second page here. I do want to show you this really cool tool that not everybody knows. Very easy to use. I think it's in Word. There it is. In Word, it's under the References tab. You just have to go look for it. It's table of contents. And I can just say, you know what, let's just do table of contents. Notice what it did. Boom. Everywhere I've used the pre-built heading 1, 2, and 3, it goes right in and grabs them and puts page number on them. These are now hyperlinks, by the way. Notice if I hover over, it says hold down Control and click and follow, and it takes you right to those. So if I've got like 30 pages and I'm working with multiple people, it's a real quick and easy way to get from one page to the other. If I make changes, those page numbers no longer are valid. A lot of times so notice when I've clicked on it, I get the option up here to update table. So it'll refresh the page numbers as you update them. Okay. So anyway, very simple, easy tools to use. If nobody ever tells you they're there, maybe you don't know. Maybe you guys already know, and that's fine. Just giving you a very, very rapid crash course of some things to think about. Okay. So use the headings. Feel free to. You don't have to, but I would strongly encourage you to. It's just a very simple way of making a good, structured, professional looking report very easily. Easy tools that are already built in for you. And again, that type of functionality exists in much more than just Word. What else? Formatting. So don't start a new heading at the bottom of the page my rule is, unless you've got at least enough room to put a paragraph down there, right? What does that look like? If you go down here and look, right? So notice for the background, I had enough room to get a paragraph down here. My rule is if I can't get a good, strong paragraph under a new heading, go to the next page. Now, you'll have instructors and you'll have people that'll tell you every one of these headings needs to be on a brand new page and just put all the white space in there. And I'm not that person. If you don't like a bunch of white space, if you don't mind it, I mean, it's going to be a digital report. So if you're like, well, no, Steve, I'm going to put everything's on a brand new page. Okay, well, that's fine. It's not required, but if that's what you like, I'm okay with this, right? But my rule of thumb, what I will tell you is annoying is if you just see a brand new heading and then there's nothing underneath it, or maybe there's like one sentence. If you can get a whole paragraph, do it. If you can't get a whole paragraph, I would strongly urge you to start a new page. That's just a bit of a pet peeve, but I'm probably not going to count anything off of that. If you're looking at like, Steve, how can I get that, notice the executive summary is over here on page 3, right? Now that I've moved everything, I can update the table. Right. Hey, Steve, executive summary is on page 3. Can I make it page 1? Yes. Instead of a page break, there's what we call a section break, and then I can break the page numbers up. If you need help with that, please stop by. You can probably find good Google videos about in good help format of what we call formatting your page numbers and stuff like that. But if you need help, I'm happy to help you. Instead of using a page break, you're probably looking for a section break. That's easy enough to do. Okay? So again, most of you maybe you've seen that kind of stuff before. It's not the kind of stuff I want to spend an entire class period talking about because we got other things we need to do. But if you need help with any of that, please, 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 please feel free to stop by. Let's talk quickly about these headings. What do we put in? I've seen the executive summary very effectively put on the title page. It's not a bad place to put it. If it's not on your title page, it needs to be one of the first bits of text that somebody reads. It is essentially it's an abstract, or it is basically notice the first line, quick summary of the entire report. It should go first. You probably will write it last. So you probably will have just a placeholder at the very beginning for, hey, the executive summary is going to go here. I don't know, maybe you guys are better than me. It is really, I find it impossible to summarize a report if I've not already written a report. Okay. If you can summarize the entire report and then write it, kudos to you. Most people can't, would be my suggestion. For the length of documents we're talking about, 2 paragraphs should be plenty. How long does the report need to be? The report needs to be as long as it needs to be. If you look at total page numbers, graphics reports normally run anywhere from 5 to 20 pages, just depending on how many drawings and how much information you have. I'm normally kind of expecting 3 to 5 By the time you do a title page, and you got a couple pages and you're gonna have some appendices of some drawings. If you're less than 5 pages, you're probably trying too hard. Feel free to add some pictures of some of your sketches and things like that in there. Pictures are good in these reports, okay? As far as actual text, like if you just took the text and just put it on a page, it's probably not going to be too many pages of actual text, maybe a couple double spaced, right? And that's okay, as long as everything else that you're providing gets your points across. So if the entire report's maybe 5 pages total, an executive summary is normally no more than 20% of that length, right? Normally about 10% of the length is kind of a good rule of thumb for an executive summary. So if we're talking about a 5-page report, 10% being half a page, 2 paragraphs essentially, okay? So 2 paragraphs for an executive summary, just quickly, what was it you were trying to accomplish? How did you as a group decide was the best way to accomplish? And why was that the best way to accomplish it? That's it, right? In simple, non-technical terms. The purpose of an executive summary is that a suit, an executive, a vice president, for example, that's not your boss's boss, a vice president in another area, if they were to pick up your report, they read your executive summary, they can make a determination of whether they need to read the rest of your report to get any more information out of it. Basically, is this going to impact people in my area? Is it going to cost money against my budget? These are the kind of things that somebody, if they read your executive summary, they should be able to figure that out. And if they're interested or if it's going to impact their area, then they can read more of your report as they need to. That's the purpose of an executive summary. It's not really for the people involved with the project. It's for people that probably aren't. But being able to write that is a good bit of practice that you guys want to go through. Introduction. And so this is kind of the first actual meat of your report. What were you trying to do? Challenged you guys day 1 or on day 2. Write a problem statement in your own words and then just be ready to update it as you go along as you learn more about it. Here's where that's valuable. So go back to everybody's PPRs, go back to any notebook entries you've got about where you recorded. What did you as a group decide was your problem statement? Make sure it's still up to date. Maybe it's updated as you learn, and that's okay. What were you as a group trying to accomplish? Based on what Mr. Lynch gave you as the client, what did you as a group decide was important, and what does success look like, and how did that guide your design? That's kind of the main things there. Again, this is probably your shortest section, just depending on how detailed you want to be about it. As I've said multiple times, engineering is the application of existing knowledge. What existing knowledge did you go out and gather? In all cases, you're designing something in the graphics class, we're designing something that either is going to be a classroom demonstration or it's going to be used in our case, the physics lab. What is the concept that's trying to be communicated or measured? What is your understanding of it? And make sure you got a good understanding of that. And how did that help guide your design and help you generate ideas? What existing off-the-shelf solutions did you find? Did you go on Thingiverse and find things that were good inspiration? Did you have you designed something or seen something like this before? And you use that as a basis for everything. These are the kind of things you want to include in your background information. Okay. And again, that's normally what's going to set your background information and your design alternatives are kind of the 2 main things that will set a C report aside from an A and a B report. What existing knowledge did you gather and how did you put it to work? And any knowledge that you gathered since you started the project that you didn't have before you began, put some sort of a reference on there. It doesn't have to be extensive, but just, in parentheses, which source you specifically gathered information from. There's going to be a references at the end of your document that somebody can refer to learn more if they need to. And then design possibilities, alternative designs, design alternatives, any way you want to say that's fine, right? You pick the way you want to describe it. It doesn't have to be, again, it doesn't have to be my outline exactly. But what were some of the major ideas? And if you sat down, if you went to the trouble of going through a brainstorming session, you spit out like 10 major ideas, you don't have to list all 10 of those here, okay? What were 2 or 3 of the major designs that you came up, some of the major concepts that you decided between and talked out and tried to figure out evaluate which of those was going to be the best. So what happens a lot of times is sometimes the best solution is one of these, but we either didn't have the technology, the printing capability, or we just simply didn't have the time to get it done. And so we had to go with one that actually we could generate a useful solution in given the constraints that we have. But sometimes that will be one of the reasons why we didn't move an idea forward. And then what happens then is, 5 to 10 years from now, if whatever you design finally wears out, or they get a different piece of equipment in and they can change how they do the lab, we can go back and say, oh yeah, these guys had a really good idea in their report that actually is going to fit this new piece of equipment that you guys have got. Let's go back and see. And that way we're not starting from zero. We can build on that existing knowledge. That's part of the important pieces of this. If you had an idea that this would probably be a really good idea, but it needs to be made in metal. I think we talked about that day one, is there's the ability for us to print metal is not as far away as it used to be. Okay. We're not there yet, but it's a possibility. I always tell groups this idea of evaluation and alternative designs, if you want to combine those, that is okay. Can be combined. If you do them separately, it's you talk about the different designs in one section, and then in the next section, you actually evaluate pros and cons. How did you make a determination which one you decided to move forward with? You can do them as two separate sections, or you can do them combined. This is the thing. Here's the pros and cons. Here's the other thing. Here's the pros and cons. That's the latter is how I would normally write one of these, but either one is perfectly fine. How did you make a determination? Again, this was the first one we built and it made, or the first one we made and it worked. Okay, that's again, that's technically an evaluation. It's not ideal, but if that's what you did and that's all you want to write about, okay, that's passing technically. But talk about how did you make a determination from one design alternative to the other. Within your list of alternatives, within your list of design possibilities, should be either your final design or a predecessor version of it, a previous version of it. Okay. So how did you ultimately we're getting up to, how did you get to your final design? Was the actual final design one of these design possibilities? If so, how did it win out against the other design possibilities? Or again, did your final design actually end up being a piece of alternative A and a piece of alternative B, and they actually worked? And that's that. How did you get to the final design? It's going to be different for every group and different for every project. I could put 3 groups. I've done this before. I've put 3 groups on the same exact solution when we knew it was going to be a challenge, and they've produced 3 different alternatives. And how they got to all 3 of those different alternatives is different. Some of you guys have had in my intro to engineering course where you guys are all working on the same project. You see that the same exact project and you get all these different solutions to it, which is perfectly fine. How did you as a group decide to get to whatever you're presenting as the best solution given your circumstances? How was that decision made? Okay. Cost estimations are okay. It's not for the graphics class. It's not super critical. I put that in here because I'm kind of making a video that'll work for both my intro and my graphics class. My intro class, normally that is one of their constraints. They've got a budget they have to stay within. So that's critical, important for them. If you guys here in the graphics class want to know how do you estimate the cost of your parts, come talk to me and we'll figure out. Normally we put it on a scale. We see how much plastic is used and we look up what that particular machine's plastic was going to cost us. And that serves as a good estimate. And that's if your components are almost entirely 3D printed. So again, by the way, on your final design, simple operating instructions, please. Right. And I love this statement. As a student one time, bit of a smart ass, but I love the statement. He says, if they can put directions on a shampoo bottle, I guess we can write directions for our design, because it was a pretty simple design. Apparently seemed pretty obvious, but he's like, I guess we can write instructions for that. Instructions. How does your design work? So you've already talked about how you get to your final design. Make sure anything that's not clear about your final design gets talked about in the final design section. What is your final design? How does it work? How should you not use it? How is it, what would be the worst thing you can do with it? And then again, make sure it's clear. How do you operate? Okay. Step by step if needed. References. So again, anytime you've borrowed or used knowledge that you didn't have before you started this endeavor, make sure you cite that. Build a simple references page. So a lot of this information is probably going to be cited in your background/research section. But if you had anything in any of the other sections where you reference or talk about something that somebody else had, build your references page, works cited page, whatever you want to call it. Use whatever you've learned. Like I assume at least one of you probably has had the English composition classes and whatever they've taught you there. APA, MLA, these are fine. If you want to go out and see what style the American Society of Mechanical Engineers or Institute of Electrical Engineers uses, or American Society of Agricultural Biological Engineers, pick whatever society, find one, pick what style they use. Typically, they're either going to use Old Chicago, which is kind of a modified MLA version. But seriously, there's all kinds of tools. EasyBib or something like that. You can kind of pick your style. I'm not picky what style to use as long as you're consistent. Don't just give me the URLs. That doesn't work here. Right? Actually use some sort of citation style, both in the text and a references page at the end. Okay? If I'm talking Greek to you, please stop by and talk to me. Normally, I find at least one person on the group has some idea how to do this, but if you need help, I'm happy to help you. It's not required knowledge coming in. Okay. Appendices. By definition, an appendix is basically something that the reader doesn't necessarily have to have in order to understand the report. It's kind of like your appendix. You don't have to have it to survive. At least modern humans don't. So it's an additional thing. For you guys in the graphics class, drawings of your parts, because inevitably what happens is more than once we've misplaced a part. We're pretty good. We've got a pretty good system now, but occasionally we've misplaced the original part file, or the original part file goes corrupt and we don't have a good way to salvage it. But if I've got a drawing in your reports, then at least I've got the basic dimensions. It's pretty quick to reverse engineer from that. We've had to do that a couple of times. So if I can give either myself or a couple of my technicians your drawings, they can immediately see the dimensions, save us some time. We get the general idea of the shape, and we can go in and make a copy of that pretty quick to print, or we make improvements to it as we go. So we have had to do that a few times over the years. So it's just good practice. SolidWorks does so much of this for you anyway, right? Am I going to count off if you miss a dimension somewhere on there? No, do your best to follow the dimensioning guidelines that we talked about. Am I going to grade that? No, I'm really grading the rest of your report. These are really just kind of icing on the cake. If you have any kind of calculations, any kind of measurements, anything that you don't want to include in the bulk of your text, feel free to put as an appendix. The other thing though is anything that you have in your report, make sure your text of the report reference, like top says, put a couple of pictures in your report, and you could say, see Appendix A for more drawings of alternative A, right? Or see Appendix B for cost calculations, whatever it might be. Just somewhere in your report, say, go see this appendix for more information. You can give the basics in the report, in the body of the report, and then send somebody to that appendix to get more information. Again, please include graphics, pictures of your drawings, pictures of your final design. So either take like your printed out version, take pictures of those, include that in your report. Or if you go into SolidWorks, if you go File, Save As, you've got an option in the Save As window to save as either a PNG or a JPG, a JPEG. PNG is Portable Networks graphic, and those are picture files. And what it will do is whatever's on the screen right now, SolidWorks will take a snapshot of that. And now you've got an image that you can insert in both your presentation and your report. Okay. I've had groups before make nice little GIF images where they'll take a JPEG of their SolidWorks file, and then they'll rotate it 45 degrees and take another JPEG and rotate another 45 degrees, take another JPEG, throw that in a GIF image creator on the internet somewhere, and it spits back a the GIF image that you can throw in your presentation, and you can actually like show a final version of your project, and that actually rotates in your presentation. You can't, you can't have rotating graphics on a Word document. Kind of can. If I'm looking at it digitally, it'll kind of work. But anyway, you guys get the idea. You can use SolidWorks to generate images of your design in SolidWorks. Take pictures of your printed parts. Include those in your report. Those are good things to do. Okay. Questions, comments, complaints. What do you guys need from me? All right. Y'all know what to do. I'll get out of your way.